Hello, dear students. We are start our lesson. Today's laboratory work number 8. The task of our laboratory work number 8, it's determination of the limit dimensions of the normalized diameters of the metric thread. Write down to your notes the theme of our laboratory work. And what we must do in this laboratory work. For threaded connection, metric thread connection, M540 by 6, 7H8H, it's for nuts, and tolerance field for nuts, and tolerance field for bolt. Calculate the dimensions of the middle and inner diameters of the bolt and nut. Determine the numerical values of the fundamental deviations of the diameters of the bolt and nut. Determine the numerical values of the tolerances of the outer diameter of the bolt and the inner diameter of the nut. Determine the tolerances of the average diameter of the bolt and nut. Build a scheme of the location of the fields of tolerances of the thread on a given fits. And the last one, using the scheme of the location of the tolerance fields, calculate the maximum dimensions of the outer, middle, and inner threaded diameters. The results of the calculation should be present in the form of table. So write down to your notes what we need to do in our laboratory work, the task of our laboratory work. And we are continue. So for a threaded connection, M, it's metric thread connection, diameter 540 millimeters, the pitch, it's 6 millimeters, tolerance field of the nut 7H, tolerance field of the bolt 8H. It's in the middle diameter, in the average diameter. We determine the main parameters of the thread. Let's decipher the symbol. So M is metric thread of a triangular profile with an angle 60 degrees. Look on the figure, angle of triangle profile, and this angle is equal 60 degrees. Thread outer diameter 540 millimeters. Thread outer diameter, big D or small d, 540 millimeters. Thread pitch 6 millimeters. It's distance. It's pitch. Nut tolerance field for average D suffix 2 and internal D suffix 1 diameter 7H. It's for the nut. The tolerance field of the bolt for the average diameter D suffix 2 small d and the outer diameter small d 8H. Let's change the color. It's for the bolt. The tolerance fields for the diameters average diameter D suffix 2 and inner diameter D suffix 1 for the nut are the same. Therefore, the second time the designation of the tolerance field is not duplicated. The absence of special instructions indicates that the makeup length belongs to the group N, normal length. The designation of the threaded tolerance field consists of the tolerance fields of the average diameter in the first place, and the outer diameter for the bolt, and the inner diameter for the nuts in the second place. You can see the formulas to determine thread diameters for bolt and nuts. The average diameter and the inner diameter of the bolt and of the nut. We use the pitch of the thread connection. So the pitch of our thread connection is equal 6 millimeters. So we use the formulas D minus 4 plus 0.103, it's for the average diameter. And for the inner diameter, D suffix 1, we use the formula D minus 7 plus 0.505. We calculate the dimensions of the average and internal diameters of the bolt and nut. The average diameter of the bolt and nut is D minus 4 plus 0.103 from the previous slide. So, outer diameter 540 minus 4 plus 0.103, and we have 536.103 millimeters. The inner diameter of the bolt and nut is equal to D minus 7 plus 0.505. We use the formulas from the previous slide for inner diameter. D minus 7 plus 0.505. It's for threaded pitch that equals 6 millimeters. So, D outer diameter is 540 minus 7 plus 0.505, and we have 533.505 millimeters. Next step. Let's define on the directory for numerical values of limiting deviations of diameters of a bolt and nut. For a bolt with a specific tolerance field of 8H, the main upper deviation on the outer D and middle D2 and inner D suffix 1, D2 and inner D suffix 1 diameters are equal 0. The lower limit deviations, depending on the degree of accuracy of the thread diameter, are for the average diameter. It's for 8H minus 530 for 8H. We need to find 8H. We find in this table tolerance field 8H, and you can see that nominal diameter of the thread connection, it's the last one row. So the pitch P is equal 6. So we use the parameters for parameter D suffix 2 for average diameter minus 530, and for inner diameter D minus 950. Let's return to previous slide. So for the average diameter, lower limit deviation on the diameter D suffix 2 on the average diameter is equal minus 530. And for the outer diameter, lower limit deviation for D inner diameter minus 950 micrometers. And in previous values, micrometers too. For the inner diameter of the bolt, the deviation lower limit deviation on the outer diameter and the tolerance value steady are not standardized. Its inner diameter. For the nut, with a given tolerance field 7H, we use big H for the nut. The main or lower deviations of the outer diameter without suffix, average diameter D suffix 2 and inner diameter D suffix 1. Diameters are lower limit deviation on the outer diameter, average diameter, and inner diameter is equal 0 micrometers. The upper deviations, depending on the degrees of accuracy of the threaded diameter, are equal to, we use the table from the next slide. We should find tolerance field 7H. 7H. So let's start. 7H. We find 7H and upper limit deviation for the diameter D suffix 2 and D suffix 1. We have diameter of the thread from 355 to 600 and pitch 6. So we use these two parameters, plus 560 and plus 1000 micrometers. We return to previous slide. So for the average diameter, upper limit deviation of on the average diameter is equal plus 560 micrometers. For inner diameters, ES of D suffix 1, upper limit deviation for the inner diameters is equal plus 1000 micrometers. The upper limit deviation, ES of outer diameter D, and the tolerance T suffix D of the outer diameter of the nut are not standardized. Determine the numerical values of the tolerances of the outer and the average diameters of the bolt and the inner and middle diameters of the nut. Middle or outer or average diameters. So tolerance of external diameter of a bolt or outer diameter will be equal the upper limit deviation minus the lower limit deviation. Small ESD is equal 0 minus small EID, it's equal minus 950, and 0 minus 950, and we have 950 with plus micrometers, 950 micrometers. Tolerance of tolerance of inner diameter for a nut. TD suffix 1 is equal upper limit deviation on the inner diameter minus lower limit deviation on the inner diameter. So upper limit deviation is equal 1000. Lower limit deviation is equal 0. 1000 minus 0, and we have 1000 micrometers is tolerance field of the inner diameter. Tolerance of average bolt diameter. It's upper limit deviation on average diameter minus lower limit deviation on average diameter. So we have 0 minus 530, and we have 530 micrometers with plus. Tolerance of average nut diameter. It's big ES minus big EE, upper limit deviation of the nut on the average diameter minus lower limit deviation of the nut on average diameter, and we have 560 minus 0, we have 560 micrometers. Let's draw the scheme of an arrangement of fields of tolerances of a threaded connection. Using the scheme of the tolerance fields of the threaded connection, we calculate the limiting and executive dimensions of the diameters of the bolt and nut. For bolt outer diameter, it's outer diameter, nominal parameter of outer diameter plus upper limit deviation on the outer diameter plus small es. So we have diameter 540 millimeters plus 0. So we have 540 millimeters. The smallest diameter on the outer diameter, d suffix minimum, it's equal nominal diameter on the outer diameter, plus lower limit deviation of the outer diameter. 540 plus and minus 0.950, and we have 539.05 millimeters. And you can see the scheme of the location of the threaded tolerance fields. It's internal threaded, it's for bolt and for the nut. Please write down to your notes these formulas and the scheme on the figure 3.1 scheme of the location of the threaded tolerance fields. This example, write down to your notes. The executive size D will be equal to diameter 540, upper limit deviation 0, lower limit deviation minus 0.950 millimeters. For the average diameter of the bolt, D suffix 2 maximum. D small d for the bolt, we use small d. So nominal diameter on the average diameter, small d suffix 2, plus upper limit deviation on this diameter. And we have d suffix 2, 536.103 plus 0, and we have 536.103 millimeters. D suffix 2 minimum is equal D suffix 2 plus lower limit deviation on this diameter, and we have D suffix 2 is 536.103 plus minus 0.530, and we have it will be equal 535.573 millimeters. The executive size on the average diameter D suffix 2 will be equal to nominal diameter, it's 536.103, upper limit deviation 0, lower limit deviation minus 0.530. For the inner diameter of the bolt, D suffix 1 maximum is equal, will be equal D suffix 1 plus ES on the inner diameter D suffix 1. It's equal 533.505 plus 0. And this will be equal 533.505 millimeters. And D suffix 1 minimum not regulated. The executive size D suffix 1 will be equal to diameter 533.505 millimeters. It's maximum diameter. For the outer diameter of the nut, D suffix maximum not regulated. So inner diameter, D minimum. Outer diameter, minimum values. D minimum will be equal, D big D we use for the nut, big D plus EI on the outer diameter, and we have big D is equal 540 plus 0, and we have 540 millimeters. The executive size on the outer diameter will be equal not less than 540 millimeters. Write down to your notes all these formulas. On the next slide, we can see the calculation for the average diameter of the nut. For the average diameter of the nut, d suffix 2 maximum, big D for the nut, will be equal d suffix 2 plus ES upper lower limit deviation of the average diameter of the nut. And we have d suffix 2 is equal 536.103 plus 0.560, and we have 536.663 millimeters. The minimum diameter on the average diameter is equal d suffix 2 nominal diameter on the average diameter plus lower limit deviation on the diameter on the average diameter of the nuts, big D suffix 2, and we have nominal diameter 536.103 plus 0, and it's all will be equal 536.103 millimeters. The executive size on the average diameter d suffix 2 will be diameter 536.103, upper limit deviation plus 0.560, and lower limit deviation is equal 0. For the inner diameter of the nut, maximum value on the inner diameter is equal nominal inner diameter of the nut plus upper limit deviation of the tolerance field of the on the inner diameter. So nominal diameter 533.505 plus 1000 micrometers or 1 millimeters plus 1.0. And we have 534.505 millimeters. Minimum diameter on the inner diameter. Minimum inner diameter of the nut will be equal nominal inner diameter of the nut plus lower limit deviation on the inner diameter, EI, big EI for the nut, big D suffix 1. And what we have 533.505 plus 0, and it will be equal 533.505 millimeters. The executive size d suffix 1 will be equal 533.505. Upper limit deviation, it's plus 1 millimeters, 1.0, and lower limit deviation, it's 0. The results of the calculation are summarized in table 3.1. This table on the next slide. Before we start the next slide, please write down to your notes all these formulas with calculation. You have 2 minutes. And the results of the calculation are summarized in table 3.1. You can see the table 3.1, the results of the calculation of the threaded feet. You can see diameters of bolt and nut, outer diameter, average diameter, and inner diameter. Nominal contour, nominal diameters, limit contours of the bolt and of the nut, maximum and minimum, deviation of threaded diameters, small for the bolt, small es and small ei, and for the nut, big es and big ei, and tolerances of threaded diameters. All these parameters you can take from the previous slides. Then we represent profiles of a carving of a bolt and a nut, and we show executive sizes, like on the figure 3.2. You can see the figure 3.2, executive dimensions of a bolt and nut profiles. Write down to note these two schemes and this table. Then use your variant of calculation. Use your variant of initial data and repeat all these formulas for your initial data. If you will have the questions, please say it me or write it to our Telegram group or our forum on the course. Now start your work with this, with your variant of this laboratory work. Do it now. So the time of our laboratory work is finished. The time of our laboratory work is finished. I repeat one more time. If you have the questions, write it to our Telegram group, write it to our forum on the course. And we find the answers for all your questions. For today, we finished our lesson. See you on the next lessons. And have a nice day. Goodbye. See you later.